All right, thank you. I'll call to order the October 13 meeting of the Public Works Committee of the Winston-Salem City Council. Good evening. I need to note that due to the Safer at Home order, all committee members are participating virtually. For virtual meetings, committee members will be muted until asked to be heard. And when there's a vote, it'll be necessary to take a roll call. A committee member will be recognized and will raise their hand and state their vote. The committee members this evening are myself, Committee Member John Larson, Vice Chair, Council Member Annette Scipio, and Council Member Morticia T.T. Parman. I believe that we have, let's see, is Councilmember Scipio with us? Yes, we have everyone here. Very good. So we will move forward, and I will begin by reading the census statement. The Census Bureau has extended the deadline for completing the census to October 31st. A complete and accurate count in Winston-Salem is imperative for us to receive federal funding for dozens of programs and to ensure fair representation. If you have not yet responded to the census, please do so. You can go online to my2020census.gov, or you can call 844-330-2020. It only takes 10 minutes, and it will benefit our community for the next 10 years. Now, as usual, we have a consent agenda and a general agenda. The consent agenda items will be taken with one motion unless there is a need to pull one or more items off consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be pulled off consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the consent agenda.
All right, moved by Mr. Larson, second by Ms. Parman. Is there discussion? Hearing none, seeing no hands raised, we will call the roll. I guess that's me then calling the roll. Councilmember Larson.
Yes.
Councilmember Scipio.
Yes.
Councilmember Parman.
Aye.
And I vote yes, so that's unanimous, and we will move to the first general agenda item. I believe there is only one general agenda item.
Item G1, update regarding city-owned bridges.
Thank you. And providing this update will be
Director Keith Huff, Field Operations. Good evening,
Director Huff.
And other members of the committee and council.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Huff.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I guess Meredith will be teeing us up here. So the past couple of months or really years has seen a lot of activity with our bridge network and our system in general with the weather issues we've been having as of late, and wanted to give the committee an update on what we're seeing out in the field and share some information on the latest round of inspections and where we're going. So Meredith, could you move forward for me? All right, so what we'd like to do is give you an overview of the bridges in the city, the inspection process of those bridges, kind of the issues found during the inspection process, some of the current closures that we have in place now, and then some known replacement and maintenance costs that we compiled from that information. All right, thanks, Meredith. So basically the city has we have currently 54 bridges on our road network that we currently have maintenance responsibility for. This doesn't include your smaller pipe systems that happen to cross city maintained roads or NCDOT maintained bridges. So It's just what we have as far as true large span or larger span bridges, 19, 20-foot larger span structures that either span another road, creek or stream, railroad, etc. So the age of our bridges, they vary dramatically. We have bridges that were constructed in the 20s, and then we have bridges that were completed basically in the last couple years. I think Glade Street has the distinction of being our oldest bridge that's currently in service without a total replacement or major overhaul, and it was constructed in 1919. The type of bridges, the construction, the materials vary greatly as well. We have wooden bridges. What you see in the photo to the right is a photo of the High Cliffs Bridge. This is one that we worked on about a year and a half ago. It is the sole ingress-egress for 15 property owners, or 16 property owners actually, and it is a wooden bridge, wooden timber bridge. We have bridges made of concrete, steel, all different types of materials, all different styles of construction as well. All right, Meredith, please move forward. So the inspection process, each 2 years, I'm sorry, a bridge should be inspected as part of the normal rotation and process. And a condition rating is given to each bridge, with 100 being the best possible bridge. That is a newly constructed bridge with no issues, down to 0. It's not functional at all. The inspections are conducted by a contracted inspector under the purview of NCDOT. This latest round of inspections was conducted by an engineering firm called Alpha and Omega. These inspection reports are top to bottom. They look at drift under the bridge, they look at paint, they look at everything, all facets, superstructure, substructure, all facets to yield this rating. And based on the rating, the local government gets feedback to either post weight restrictions, close the bridge, issue priority repairs, or whatever the findings dictate. The picture to your right, or on the right side of the screen, is a photo of Old Greensboro Road Bridge before the closure. This particular bridge was posted prior to the last inspection report, limiting the weight rating coming across the bridge. And this has happened to several bridges across our community. All right, Meredith, please move forward. So, issues found during the inspection process. Corrosion, as you would guess, is a huge issue. Corrosion of the steel support beams. This is actually a photo. The top right is a photo of one of the beams under Old Greensboro Road Bridge. Literally, you can stick your hand through the I-beam here. So severe corrosion of these beams. That's why they need to be replaced. Spalling of the concrete that is in the support structures. When the concrete chips away, it exposes the steel reinforcing that then in turn starts rusting, and that loses the structural integrity of the bridge. The decking on the bridges can also spall and chip away based on salt that we put down during snow and ice control, or just wear and tear from normal vehicular traffic. Drift and debris. During big storms, you can have large amounts of debris that build up on the front side of the bridge that causes undermining of the support structures. And also, this drift can affect the wing walls or the side support structures of the bridge and cause failures or cracking or damage. All right, Meredith, move forward, please. So based on the current inspection reports, we have developed a list of the top 15 maintenance needs. These are priority maintenance items that came forth from the inspection process. You can see there's a number of different bridges, various wards that have these corrosion issues, these spalling issues, beam repairs, etc. And you can see on the right-hand column the maintenance costs very significantly from one bridge to the next. But I guess the take-home point here is we have about $1.3 million of known priority maintenance cost for our top bridges that have come forth with this latest round of inspection reports. All right, Meredith, move forward, please. So some current closures. This is West Lakeview Drive Bridge. It is in the North Ward. And basically, it is a bridge that was constructed in 1964. It has failure of the timber decking, the steel beams, the concrete abutments that are holding the bridge together. This is a bridge that the NCDOT would term as structurally deficient and structurally obsolete. On the bottom right-hand photo, you can see that the bridge is totally overwhelmed in a storm event. This happens to be a photo that was taken this year. So this bridge, basically the intersection, the bridge, and the adjacent road are overwhelmed in the storm event. It has a structural rating of 22.74. Anything that gets in the 40s is going to be considered a structurally deficient or structurally obsolete bridge. The approximate replacement cost here is around $1.8 million because the bridge has to be raised along with the intersection. And currently there's no funding source that has been identified for the replacement of this particular bridge. Thank you, Meredith. Forward. Next bridge, probably everybody's aware of this one. This is Old Greensboro Road Bridge in the East Ward. Basically beam failures here on the eastbound travel lane, and the concrete deck is of issue here. This was a bridge that we closed in June of this year. It was built in 1950 and has a structural integrity rating of 21. The total replacement cost on this bridge is about $2.7 million. However, with this bridge being an arterial, we have invoked an emergency fix to replace the eastbound lane beams of the bridge to get it open to travel. So our contractor's on site right now, and they are replacing the beams on the eastbound travel lane right now. Construction window for this fix is about 5 weeks, give or take, weather permitting. All right, Meredith, move forward, please. All right, next bridge that's closed currently is Novak Street. This has been closed since May of 2018. The bridge was built in 1965, and it has a rating of 38 and change. Basically, this has timber flooring and wooden abutments. The lower right-hand corner, you see a pick that the bridge inspector was able to just place just a very easy swing into the bridge abutment. So this bridge will be totally replaced. It is currently under design, and final design documents are in hand right now for that particular bridge. All right, move forward, Meredith, please. So this brings us to our list of top 10 bridge replacements that we know of and have information in hand right now. Some of the same bridges that we've been talking about previously on this list. Basically, this ranking was determined by taking the sufficiency rating or the structural integrity weighting of the bridge, and then looking at the various traffic counts. Is it a residential, arterial? And then looking at the loss of service, the effect on schools, the ease of detour, et cetera. And that's what gave us this priority ranking for these top 10 bridges. And as you can see, the total replacement cost is in the neighborhood of $28 million. And it includes the total bridge replacement, construction, design, construction inspection, permitting, et cetera. So I guess take home here, there's a lot of cost association with the replacement of these top 10 bridges. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thanks, Meredith. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any committee questions or comments? Councilmember Parman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So with the Novak Bridge being closed for 2 years and it's already in the design phase, what's the wraparound time? How much longer is this bridge projected to be closed before the residents in that community can use it again?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Parman, I would guess with the procurement process, the construction, and the completion of the bridge, I would guess a year until it's fully open to traffic again.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
As I recall, this was accelerated through the funding process in order to cut the wait time as much as possible. Am I remembering correctly?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you're absolutely correct.
Thank you. Yes, I believe Councilmember Scipio.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Huff, for the wonderful report. I have been speaking with Mr. Taylor, and I think it would be wonderful if we could prepare the master list of those 54 bridges and their conditions, and those that are up for maintenance versus those that are looking at replacement, because I think we need to know the severity of our bridges and the replacement and the maintenance on them. It should be a priority for our city, yet it's always about the dollars. And so I think we need to really look at that for our bridges. And accompanying that, we have sinkhole problems. We've experienced one recently in front of Wiley School, as well as one in the Innovation Quarter. It has to do with our drainage pipes that go under our streets. They are old also. And I think we need to come up with a plan on how do we identify them before we react to them. I mean, we react when things fail. It would be great if we could already be thinking about what we need to keep our community safe. The sinkholes, if a car or residents fall into those sinkholes, or if the bridges collapse, we'll be looking at more than a few $1 million in settlements. And so I think it's better to be very proactive and see what we are. And I know that at some point in the future, we'll probably have to float some bond money to repair our bridges and to repair our drainage system, because those are really problems right now. And the city is old, and it's getting older. And a lot of things were put in place many years ago. And so I think this is just something we have to be very, very aware of, that we've got to look at what is it that we are needing for maintenance of our infrastructure, as well as the replacement costs of these things. So I would like for that to happen, that we see a complete list of the bridges, their assessment, their estimated replacement cost, and the order for the bridges and the maintenance also.
All right, thank you. Councilmember McIntosh had a question or comment.
Yeah, looks like according to this list, I'm the winner. I've got 11,237,000 of the 27,000 or 27 million of the projects in the Northwest Ward. And it looks like I think we've gotten our money's worth out of Glade Street. That's been in service since 1919. My question is, and Dan, you probably know this as well as anybody, but what other funding sources are available to us besides just bond money and general fund money? Is there PAL money? Is there any state funding? I know Novak got some state funding, did it not?
Yes, it did. And I think that I see Assistant City Manager DeCane unmuting to respond to that question.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the committee. One clarification on the Novak funding. It was eligible for state funding. However, that process was going to add years to the construction, and that's where the late Mayor Pro Tem Vivian Burke lobbied for, it was either it was a bond money to replace the state funds that would have lengthened the term of the project. So yes, state funding is available, but it comes like most state things with a price tag of time versus dollars.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I can attest that I've seen that with some high priority projects in my ward that we thought we were speeding them up by adding them to the state request list. They got state funded, and now everything's frozen at the state level. So it was a matter of be careful what I ask for. I might get it. Other questions or comments on the Other questions or comments on the bridge report?
Mr. Chairman, John Larson.
Yes, yes, Mr. Larson.
Thank you. In 2002, there was a study done about bridges in Winston-Salem, and I hope that as we go through the studies, that we'll pay some attention to them. I'm not suggesting that every recommendation in this particular historical study was directed mostly toward the bridges from the 1920s, 30s. The earliest bridge in Winston-Salem that's recorded, I believe, is 1890, which is the Wachovia Street Bridge. So I guess what my concern is, a couple questions, if I could just try to get some clarification. On this assessment that was done, we're looking at two documents. One is titled Maintenance Costs for 15 Selected Bridges, but it says Estimated Bridge Replacement Cost on the graph. So am I assuming that this first graph that you showed me is the cost for repair and maintenance of these bridges? Is that correct, Damon?
I'd have to refer to Mr. Huff for that on the first slide. It was my understanding that the first slide was maintenance on the bridges based on the findings from the inspectors. And then the final chart that you saw was replacement costs.
Replacement.
Some of those bridges were duplicated.
We're duplicated. I think maintenance is a huge question right now. And as we talk about preservation and usability of these bridges, to immediately ask the question, are we maintaining them, or can we maintain them? Do we inspect them? Do we remove the debris from underneath them? The sorts of criticism that we're getting on our maintenance programs. What are we actually doing to maintain them on a regular basis? And I'd like us to give some thought to that. The other thing that concerns me a little bit as we enter into these discussions, and we all acknowledge that everything has a lifespan and probably will need replacement. But as we look at Winston-Salem and the attention we've given in the last 5 years or so to bridges, particularly along the Salem Parkway, the pedestrian bridges, the arches, the various things to make this town an interesting place to drive through and cross over streams and railroads. I hope that we'll give some consideration to the design as we look forward, not simply just replace them with a standard sort of bridge. And why I draw your attention to this particular book is that there's some good actual early designs and specifications that are recorded when the bridges were originally built. And it gives us some patterns, I think, for looking at how we can still compatibly design our bridges that blend into the neighborhoods that they're located, downtown situations, what have you. So I don't know where the design component of these discussions comes in, but I'd like us to make sure that we spend some thought early in the game as we talk about replacing them. Light fixtures on bridges, the parapets, the concrete balustrades, how these are detailed, I think is incredibly important. It seems like every bridge we've talked about, we start with New Jersey barriers almost, and then we end up trying to improve the design, and I'd like us to consider it. Is that a matter for the Appearance Commission, or who would be reviewing the designs of these bridges?
I think it depends on how much it costs.
Well, everything is costing right now. We have, maybe we even have estimates. I guess the question to me is, do these estimates include what kind of design are we dealing with here? I mean, we're getting a figure here that we're beginning to lock into, and I just want to make sure that we're not, cheapening the whole experience here, and on the front end. And so if we're talking about replacement bridges, I'd like to also talk about what these bridges are going to look like. If they're going to be in the landscape for 50 or 60 years, which these last bridges have been, what are we going to be looking at during that period of time? What we have right now is from something that was bequeathed to us from the 1920s, 30s, WPA, what have you, and they've set a certain tone of architectural design, which I think is important to the city. And I'd like to make sure that we don't cheapen that experience. This has certainly been the attempt of Creative Quarters and others that have looked at the bridges that are being built currently, modern bridges, mind you, some of them, across Salem Parkway, as well as some innovative bridges as well. So let's take a look at that as we go along.
It's certainly a fair question. My understanding is that in those cases, the city was responsible for raising the difference between the cost of the bridge with its basic functionality and cost of the enhanced appearance bridge. I see Mr. Garrity is nodding, unless one of our other staff has more information on that question. I think that's basically it. If we want something more decorative, then we've got to come up with the difference.
Well, even if I can push this point one further, I mean, more decorative is something that we worked with the NCDOT on as we refined even their standard bridges that they put across the parkway. And I think there's room for discussion about what the parapets look like and whether there's lighting on the bridge or what have you. And I hope those discussions aren't automatically truncated by the desire for expediency or cheapness as we look at the whole issue of these bridges. I mean, I want to get at that, and I want to get that issue up in the front end instead of coming back later and saying, oh, geez, these don't really do much for the city as far as visual enhancements. If the Creative Corridors needs to be involved in these, that's a discussion to occur. But this is something new that's coming forward to the public of replacing maybe 10 bridges within this city. And I would hope that they would have some aesthetics to them as well as functionality.
Well, that's certainly a longer discussion than we can resolve in one evening. So
exactly,
we'll put it on our radar screen for continued discussion. What again, Ms. Trump, is the total figure just for the basic replacement cost of bridges that are due for it?
$27 million.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
$27 million.
Yeah, 27.8. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry. Yes, yes, Ms. Pickett, please.
I just wanted to have a question on that estimated cost. Do they include inflation, or are they just today's numbers?
Ms. Ruff?
Yeah, Councilmember Scipio, they have a small inflation factor and a small contingency, but they are based on what we're seeing right now for installation of a basic cord slab style bridge. And to Councilmember Larson's point, they have no decorative or lighting accompaniments with them.
Mm-hmm. So again, as we look future, putting together a budget for any replacement bridges, I think we have to sort of pad the numbers a bit, because the prices of 10 years from now won't be the same as today's. But I think we should be proactive in putting that together, because there may be some dollars coming down from the federal that we need to just be ready to tap into if that were to happen. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm picking one directly related question out of the chat. An inquiry about the Lakeview Drive Bridge, which was closed in the spring of 2020. And the inquiry is regarding whether there is a process that the impacted community can pursue to try to bump that up on the priority level, or otherwise have it completed more rapidly. And I believe that is a question for Mr. Duquesne.
Good evening again, Chair, members of the committee. Well, staff is fully aware of the status of the bridge. Just like Novak, we pursue every funding opportunity that's available through state or otherwise. It just boils down to a matter of us being able to do our best to find the best solution. Novak, we were fortunate with available, I believe they were lobs that we could take advantage of at that time. Even pursuing state funds, there's an application process, there's a review process. They will only accept certain designs that they have to review. So Until we have a chance to get all that put together, it's difficult for us to estimate a timeline for completion.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments regarding the bridge report?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, if we're going to be pursuing this, I would like staff to present some design alternatives to this committee. I know DOT, if this is NCDOT, they do have a variety of detailing that they use on even the most standard of bridges. And I think we ought to begin very early to take a look at that. Now, if these bridges aren't going to happen for another 5 years, then it may be all a moot point. But if we're getting ready, if we're getting on the verge of contracting construction of bridges, I think we ought to know what we're going to be building. The public needs to know what we're going to be building. So if you've done pricing on designs, I think it would be useful. At least I would like to see what those designs actually are, and what alternatives may be available. I assume we're using an NCDOT guidelines on these constructions because it has to be passed by them as well. Is that true or not?
Mr. Huff and Mr. DeKay? Mr. Huff?
Yes, Councilmember Larson, what these numbers were based on is the NCDOT cord slab design. So this is one possible bridge design that is relatively cost effective. It's something that could be put together fairly efficiently, and is one of the more cost effective designs, but it's just one option, as you mentioned.
Well, yeah, and it may be applicable for certain applications, but we're getting ready to replace some pretty spectacular bridges in this town.
All right, Mr. Larson, your point is made with emphasis, and that will be retained in committee for further discussion. We're kind of in a transitional period here, so I'm reluctant to ask if that report be brought back in November. Perhaps early in 2021 would be a good target point for that. I assume that we do not anticipate approving any additional bridge replacements between now and early next year.
No, sir, we do not. It's sort of as a sense of urgency regarding designs and contracting for the replacement of bridges, that we don't see that because funding hasn't been identified for the majority of the replacements on the list. We have time to bring those items back for consideration by the committee.
Yeah, I frankly do not see the state legislature acting before the end of the calendar year to address major infrastructure questions that have not been addressed at this point. Okay, are there any other questions or comments on the general agenda item?
No.
All right, thank you. Seeing none, that concludes our scheduled agenda for this evening. We will have the full council meeting next Monday evening, and I will look forward to seeing my colleagues at that time. Our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.